Hello, everybody. Welcome back and happy Halloween to a very special Halloween edition of Real Good Movies. I am your host, Will Beeman, the production manager for College TV. I'm joined once again by some lovely panelists, but before we get to that, we have a long discussion about the great blockbuster horror film Halloween Ends. So grab your ticket, find your seat, get your popcorn, and let's have the show begin.
Gosh, I love movies.
And like I said before the credits sequence rolled, I am joined once again by two wonderful panelists. Zed and Desiree are back for this month's episode. Thank you very much, both of you, for joining. Desiree, how are you today?
I'm doing well, yeah.
And Zed?
Can't complain.
Can't complain. That's what I like to hear. Are you guys ready to talk about the spooktacular film Halloween Ends? Just a little, I guess, teaser of how this discussion is probably going to go is, I think watching the movie itself is scarier than what the film ended up being. But before we get to that, let's give just a real brief discussion about the October box office. It wasn't really that momentous as some might have thought. It is accompanied by two horror films in the top 5, and unfortunately Black Adam at number 1. We aren't going to be discussing that film, but I was not a fan personally. But Black Adam brings in number 1 at $80.3 million domestic. Smile had a very strong second month, technically, because it came out the last week of September with $78.5 million. Halloween Ends is at $56 million in third place. Lyle Lyle Crocodile captured some of that Paddington office audience at $29.5 million. And the Julia Roberts and George Clooney movie coming in clutch with $22.3 million in just a week in the box office. So that's actually pretty successful for an adult-oriented romantic comedy like that. But once again, kind of veering us towards our conversation on how things will go, Halloween Ends is supposed to be the big horror knockout punch from Universal Studios and isn't even winning its own month, and it's been in theaters for, I think it's third week now by the time this video goes live. So to have it only making $56 million and getting beat by The Rock is not looking good for the strength of this franchise.
The Rock is a pretty big box office draw.
He is indeed, but I'm just trying to level set and let people know what the expectations, because we do have similar feelings for Halloween Ends when we get there. But before we do that, let's do the real recommendations segment of the show and kind of talk about a couple movies that we've watched that we want to recommend everyone to watch. And if you're capable of doing it, because I forgot to include this in an email to you guys, since it's October, name what you think is the best horror movie of all time.
Ooh, okay.
But Zed, you go first.
All right. So first up, my first pick is going to be The Watcher. Came out earlier this year. It's about a young woman who moves to Romania with her boyfriend who speaks the language, and unfortunately she doesn't. And she's like a aspiring actress, but she's just kind of like in a weird place in her life where she's like, I needed to make some changes. So she decides to make a pretty big change. When they get to the new place, the boyfriend seems to be pretty comfortable making things happen, understanding how to live life in this new place, but she's definitely having trouble adjusting. And as the days go on, she starts to realize there's somebody watching. And yeah, I really don't want to give too much away, because this is really one of those movies where you're constantly like, wait, this is happening. Wait, no, this is happening. And it's just so much fun to watch with a friend, and you're just like going back and forth, and it keeps you locked in, and it continues to just not really pull any punches. That's my first pick. For my second pick, I really want to just shout out The Redeem Team. Came out earlier this month on Netflix. It's a documentary. It's about the 2008 Olympic basketball U.S. men's team, comprised of some legends, the late, great Kobe Bryant, LeBron James, Chris Bosh, Dwayne Wade, Carlos Boozer. I could go on. It's just, personally, being a basketball fan, being a Kobe fan, I'll take any media you throw at me anytime we're talking about the ethic of the Black Mamba, the intensity that he worked with, that he trained with, that he expected of his teammates, and just to see the unity that although all these guys played on different teams within the league, when they came together to play for the USA, they kind of like rose above all that and managed to redeem themselves. So yeah, those are my 2 picks.
Can't think of a horror movie that quick.
The Watcher was definitely a horror movie.
No, I said what was your favorite? Yeah.
My bad. Favorite horror movie? I mean, you're really throwing me
I
in
know,
the deep
right?
end here.
No
but,
pressure.
I gotta say, John Carpenter's The Thing.
Okay.
It's just, that's one of those where it's like I grew up with it. The practical effects hold up today. Maybe they're a little goofy, but they're still gorgeous in my opinion. And I think it also kind of fits the theme of Halloween Ends. Not even just the John Carpenter connection, but just like the themes of like we don't really know who's inside, or
Right.
kind of what I'm saying. But yeah, I gotta go with John Carpenter's The Thing.
Okay. All right, Desiree, how about you?
What's like the best scary movie of all time? That question?
That and your recommendations.
Okay. The first one, the best scary movie to me, I guess, being put on the spot to think of one, I would go with Scream. I already said that last time.
Yeah.
That's my favorite like movie, I guess. But I mean, at this point, it's a classic, and I don't really like calling something that came out in the 90s a classic. But we're getting to the point where it's going to be almost 30 years that it's been out, and it's still constantly one of those movies that people can go back to and reference and talk about and everything. So
Right.
I feel like that one would probably be my favorite and best horror movie.
And your recommendations?
My recommendations, I have one is like a horror movie and one is a comedy. So the first one is Fresh. It came out like this summer, like in July maybe, I think. And that one, I really love the cinematography for it. I think it's a beautiful movie, even though it's kind of simple in its plot. It's not too outlandish as a plot, but the way they put everything together and the actors that they have for it is spot on. If it was with anyone else, I probably wouldn't have liked it as much, but they played their characters very well and it fit into the story really well. And it wasn't overdone with a lot of symbolism or anything. Like, I feel some horror movies now are very like symbolism and like layers and all that stuff, and I love those movies, but also I like ones that are just kind of like, it's simple in nature when you watch it at first, but then you can piece it up and look a little bit deeper if you want to, but you don't need to in order to enjoy it. And the second one was Not Okay, and I think that one came out in September, maybe August. I watched it more recently though, and that one, that's a movie if you want to hate the main character because she's not someone that you want to root for the whole time. And it starts out pretty intense, and then you figure out why people hate her. Like, the beginning montage is just of people talking about how much they hate this person, and then you find out why. But it was a very particular movie for like those like people that are kind of like zillennials, I think they're called, where it's like they're on the back end of millennials, but not Gen Z. I think that's the kind of crowd that they were trying to portray a little bit, or at least relate to with some of the topics and stuff in it. But it's really funny. It also has Dylan O'Brien, who's one of my favorite actors, and he was very good in it. But besides that, I think it's just a really fun movie to watch. It's got an interesting story and an interesting ending.
Okay. I feel like I would be a little old for that target audience, but thanks to my student workers, they always keep me on God, you know what I'm saying? I think that's how the slang goes, right, Zed?
Oh,
my recommendations are, it seems really weird because I always try to focus on movies that might be missed and like kind of more on the independent side of things, but I have to give a shout out to Marvel's Werewolf by Night. Directed by Michael Giacchino, and you might be like, I know that name before, but I can't think of what else he's made, and that's because he's not directed anything. He's normally a film composer, so you've probably seen dozens of his movies, but this time he decided to go behind the camera as well, and it's just a very good homage to the classic Universal type movies, and I mean, it's even down to being in black and white, but it was just very well done, very effective. Very short and sweet plot. It doesn't really wander around and overstay its welcome, and it's got some funny cameo appearances in it. But I thought it was very surprising how much I enjoyed it, because I've personally been a little bit burnt out on a lot of the Marvel product, but that one was a very refreshing change of pace. And for people that kind of want that classic monster movie type feel, it's definitely one worth watching. And then the second movie I was going to recommend, I was going to kind of talk about Smile since I've seen it since we've recorded last. But Smile I didn't find so much scary, as in it's just loaded with so many jump scares you jump throughout the movie. So I'm going to recommend instead the movie It Follows from 2014, directed by David Robert Mitchell. And it's almost a very similar premise to Smile, but without the jump scares and much more a traditional tension building, and like kind of fits into that elevated horror genre when that started to become more of a thing. That was kind of on the ground floor of that. So I do know a lot of people that haven't seen it, and it's definitely worth watching. That's usually in my Halloween rotation every year. So that's what I'm going to do. And then I'm going to throw in a bonus recommendation. It was a film we saw at the Hobnobbin Film Festival, and that's called It Happened One Weekend, directed and written by Zach Cooper. Not only was it a great romantic comedy, but Indianapolis filmmakers, so Indiana represent, definitely worth watching. Had a great time with that film, so I think anyone that's a fan of romantic comedies will have a great time with that movie as well. So that's going to do it for the recommendation portion of the show, and we're just going to dive in and find out whether or not Halloween will end. I'm going to start our discussion by talking about how my history with the Halloween franchise will affect my opinion, because obviously by my sweatshirt, I think the original Halloween is the perfect horror film and the best one ever made. Goofiness and bloopers aside, I've seen it so many times I can point out where the bloopers happen, like when you can see the wrench on his hand when he breaks the window, when you can see the crew members in the background, when you can see a camera glare. So when these reboot films started, I was pretty excited because they were trying to take the Halloween H2O route and ignore every film and then direct sequel to Halloween 1 and go from there, but quote unquote do it well.
Which, with the first entry, I'd say they really did.
Yeah, I do think the 2008 one, I don't think it was great, but I think it was fine. And it did, 2018. And it got me excited to see where things were going to go from here. I was very on the fence with David Gordon Green having a writing partner, Danny McBride, who is not somebody you think about being associated with a horror film. And the 2018 Halloween is funny. Like, there is a lot of comedy in it. You can tell a comedy writer was a part of that script process. But Halloween Kills, personally, I thought was awful. I could not stand that film. And that leads us now to just fast forward to Halloween Ends, where once again, David Gordon Green returns behind the camera, co-wrote the script with Danny McBride, closing out this saga of the 40-year history of Halloween. But I'm still not entirely sure which film this was supposed to be the sequel to, because it's very disjointed compared to the previous two in this trilogy. And it feels like we've missed two entries. That's how I feel. So let me toss it around first a little bit and see what your initial thoughts are just about this movie and it being the final sequel or whatever. We'll start with you, Desiree.
I was disappointed. I'm not gonna lie. I also didn't really care for Halloween Kills, like the second part of the little newer trilogy. I thought it started strong with the 2018, reboot beginning, and then the Halloween Kills wasn't my favorite, but I was like, you know what, maybe that will be the worst one of the group, which I don't really think that I disliked much of it, other than just some of it was cheesy and there was just like parts I was confused about, and there were things that I liked about the second one, but this one does feel completely different. The motivations for the characters that they've already set up in two other movies seem completely different. It doesn't seem like they're the same. Like, Laurie seems like a completely different person, even though they try to write it away like she was trying to move on and stuff. And I'm like, okay, but she spent like how many years on that like reserve, like where she was just by herself, a recluse, like all that stuff, and then 4 years after another traumatic night, she's just like making a pie. Like, she's totally fine now, it seemed like. And then also how the community treated her was very jarring.
Yeah.
I don't think that they made it seem like it was going to go that way at all in the other two. So that was surprising to see people kind of like just in the parking lot at a grocery store, like yelling at her. Like, that
Right.
was very strange, a strange choice. I couldn't understand the tone. I couldn't understand the characters. Like, all of it seemed like someone else was finishing this movie series.
And like, to point on that, like, where people were like yelling at her, like, what happened? The whole town rallied around her in Halloween Kills, and like they were all like, yeah, we're in this together.
What was the
To where now she's just on her own again, and she's the outcast.
What
So
was the slogan in Halloween Kills? They just kept on
evil
chanting,
dies
"Evil
tonight. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's supposed
but
to be a sense of community.
right.
Yeah.
So Zed, what did you kind of think of the overall tone here with this film?
I wasn't sure this was a Halloween movie, to
Right.
be perfectly honest with you. Just backtracking, because you guys touched on it with Halloween Kills, I think that movie really suffered just mainly because it was both the sequel, Kills, and Ends were greenlit immediately after the first one. So you're kind of like, nothing's really going to happen in the second movie. So
Right.
I feel like that's a little bit of a write-off. But then with this third one, it's almost like they had some like Stephen King, young romance, edgy Twilight type something amalgamation going on, and the studio was like, we're gonna turn that into a Halloween movie, and it didn't make much sense to me. I'm also a Halloween fan. The original is strong. I loved the 2018 movie. I'm not gonna lie, I really enjoyed that first entry. So with Kills, I was really disappointed. With this one, I had hope, but it was just a laugh. I was cackling. There were moments of like genuinely good cinematography, but that's about as much as I can say in the positive column.
Right.
There were some cool kills as well, if you're a fan of slasher stuff like that. But for the most part, it was really it was a bit of a letdown.
Yeah. And I think what confuses me the most is like, I mean, kudos to Jamie Lee Curtis for coming back and getting the bag, because they did not know what to do with her character at all, other than just to have her there. Because in the first film, she's out in the woods, all hunkered down. The second film, she's in that hospital room the entire time.
Right.
And then in this one, she's hunkered down in a house writing a book. So like, they don't have anything to do with her. She's just here. She's just present throughout the film. So just to say that she came back and they can have her fight Michael at some point in each film, or just have at least like some kind of a face-off. But
when they were in the grocery store and like she sees the sheriff and all that, and like I think that's the first time we see Lori like be a normal person, and it's so weird because like we're used to her being this like, even just since the 2018 one, like the survivalist persona kind of character, and then she's like playing with her hair and like all like cute, and it's just like, I feel like this should be a cute thing, these older people having this little flirting moment, but it feels so unnatural, and it's like, that's not the Lori that we know. I don't know.
Yeah, that's why I keep saying, like, it feels like we've missed 2 entries in this series somehow instead, but like, because it almost completely ignores everything that happened in Halloween Kills, and it's more of a sequel to Halloween 2018, but then also taking elements from all of the old Halloween sequels.
So many homages.
Because like, why I didn't end up hating this movie as much as I should have is because everything with Corey in this film reminds me of like a newer rewriting version of the Thorn Rune from Halloween 4, 5, and 6, where that's when they're trying to explain why Michael Myers is the way he is, and it's because he was cursed by like this cult of this rune, and his bloodline, like every other generation or something, has the personification of evil, so which is why his niece Jamie started showing the signs in those sequels. And like, I always liked that because if you're going to run a franchise into the ground, at least try and give him an origin for it, besides the fact that he's just evil. Because it's just so vague, it's hard to build off of that. So like, I thought when this was going on, that this Corey character was going to be the one that like inherits this curse next and like becomes the Shape. And I was like, oh, so that's how Halloween's going to end, but also Universal's going to want to make money in a few years. This gives them an opportunity to keep that going and still sell merch with Michael Myers masks and all that.
Corey Myers.
So let's talk about our introduction to Corey though, as like the straight-laced, super nice, trying to get into engineering college, last minute panic babysitter, and he's babysitting that little brat that just does not like him at all.
He's getting dunked on the whole time. He's like 10 years old.
Just getting roasted,
Yeah.
and it's funny that you recommended the thing because they're watching
literally
that
watching
at
the
the
thing,
beginning, yeah. And it's just funny because like he ends up playing hide and seek or whatever, and then like the door is open, the knife goes missing, and then you're like, all right, here we go. This is Halloween Ends. This is what we wanted.
To note though, in the background of the shot where he like finds the knife is missing, like you can see like the kid wrecked the living room as well. Like the shelf
Yeah.
is off his hinges. Like he really went all out to scare the crap out of his babysitter.
Right. So I mean, creative ingenuity by him.
For sure.
But so like one thing leads to another, and he locks him in the basement.
Attic.
Or the attic. Sorry. Wrong storage level of a home. But when he kicks the door open and hits the kid in the face with the door, I thought that was it. Like I was like, okay, he let his anger get the best of him. He kicked the door open, hit the kid, and the parents are going to be like, what's wrong with you? You're not the perfect straight kid that we know. And maybe we'd get character development with him for the rest of this film. But Desiree, what happens after he gets hit in the face? I shouldn't laugh, but
It's funny though.
Yeah.
Like, it's
The
really
scene,
funny.
well, it's funny because of how unexpected it is. So
Right.
the kid falls over the and at the beginning of the movie, they show this place is like a mansion. They have like
Right.
3 stories, and that's how I knew someone was going to fall over the edge, though, because of how they showed
they
that.
focused on that.
Yeah, whenever they do that, whenever they show up the staircase to show how many levels there are of something, or like how tall the building is, like over the railing, you know someone's gonna fall eventually. I didn't know it was gonna be the kid, and it happened so fast. And the kid, like the way it shows it, he goes over the edge, and then he just lands, and he flops back up, and he's just dead. Like it was a very quick and graphic kill for what we didn't expect. Like,
Right.
You don't expect the kid to die and for that situation to happen.
Yeah, and it's not like a scary kill either. It's like
No.
almost like a Looney Tune effect because
Yeah.
he just accordions and then falls onto the floor, and it is just out of nowhere because the way it's edited is so delayed. Like he gets hit in the face, it cuts down to the parents for a couple seconds, like looking around the lobby, and then the body falls,
Yeah.
and then it's just weird. Like it kind of set me in the tone though, where I was like, okay, that's what we have to look forward to kill-wise, is like some graphic kills you don't expect.
Yeah.
Let's see how these choices go, because I guess if they were going to end it, I do want them to make some weird choices, which they do.
Absolutely.
So like let's just focus mainly on Corey's through line here for a while. So Corey kind of becomes, like I was hinting, like he's going to become the new Shape, because he starts getting like picked on by other kids because
school
he
band
apparently just got or he got away with just manslaughter or something, but then was found not guilty or something. So he served no time or punishment for it. So he's been like vilified as like the psycho babysitter. So like the townspeople are picking on him, and when he's getting picked on at the gas station, he breaks the glass bottle with his hand. So like you can see that there's like a rage snapping, and it just keeps escalating throughout. And from the glass breaking bottle to just the next moment that he snaps, it escalates from breaking a bottle to just murder. So like fast escalation.
Being the
but
homeless man.
yeah,
Yeah.
the homeless man. Yeah. And that's when he finds Michael Myers down in the sewers.
Well, Michael finds him.
Yeah, Michael finds him, and he gets out, and then the homeless guy is like, how did you escape? He never lets anyone come out that he brings in. And then, like, that's in my head when the light switch flipped, and I was like, oh, I see what they're doing. And I was,
They had like that penance stare moment.
Yeah.
Where he's like looking into his eyes and he sees
Right.
everything that's happened.
and then they have, like, training montages, I guess,
guess.
where he's like, show me how to do it. And Michael takes up his knife out of nowhere and kills
Doug the cop.
people, and like they start killing people together. And I was like, I get what's going on here. He's getting this passed down to him, and he's going to become the new killer. But like, we'll save the end of the movie for a little bit later, but we know that's not the case. But like, with just strictly Corey's storyline, did you buy into it? Did you not like the story choices? What would you have done better? Zed, what are your thoughts? Because I know you say
I have so many
I
thoughts.
know you think it's comical. I think is how you've described it once before.
Corey's whole story is it's a roller coaster.
Yeah.
There's two things with Corey, right? We have his Michael storyline, and then we have his Allison storyline, and they run in parallel to each other.
Right.
Neither of them make sense, any sense to me.
Yeah.
With the Michael thing, it's like, yes, he does have those levels of like rage where he breaks the glass bottle, but to me, when I was watching it, it was almost like he breaks the glass bottle, and then we don't see him do anything else crazy until he murders the homeless man, and even that felt like it was on accident.
Right.
And it's just like, I feel like he kind of flipped at one point and then went full psycho mode, and it's like, I don't feel like that was warranted.
Right.
But that's not even my biggest problem with it, because sure, we could have him pass the curse on to whatever, like you were saying, we could follow that whole through line like we did with, what was it, H2O? In any instance, the other Allison bit, that's what I had the most trouble with, because it's like, why is she so persistent and like constantly trying to get at him when he's just like, leave me alone? Clearly I'm a psycho. Clearly I don't want anything to do with you. And she's just like, why won't you love me? And he's just not having anything to do with it. And then when he does eventually have that flip and goes a little crazy, she's just like, no, I haven't noticed any of the blood or the fact that you're... Lori and the cop dude, at one point they were like, oh, his eyes were different. Or not the cop, the father of the kid from the beginning. They were like, oh, his eyes were different. We noticed eyes. Like, I'm pretty sure she's been staring into his eyes more than anybody else. How has she not noticed?
Right.
And it's just like her being her character, having had her mother die at Michael's hands the previous movie, spoiler, why would she want to associate with the one guy in town who is known to be a child murderer? Even if it's not like intentionally, even if it was aggravated manslaughter or whatever they called it. Like, maybe don't associate with people who have killed in the past.
Right.
That might be a good idea. It was just overall problematic and comical. That's the best way to put it.
What do you think about Corey?
I don't really care for the fact that they felt like they needed to do another like origin story. Like it seems like they kind of mixed the whole Thorn Room, that sort of stuff, with like the Rob Zombie versions where they gave like an hour, like not an hour, but like 30, 40 minutes of Michael backstory, like, oh, he was picked on, feel bad for him sort of thing, or maybe not feel bad for him, but just that stuff, because all the people that Corey kills were people who
sucked.
Felt like you could see that they deserved it. Like Doug, the cop guy, he was being rude to them in the restaurant or whatever, so that's like the instigating part of like, this guy is not nice, whatever, but not to deserve to die, but like, every one of Michael's victims, for the most part, a lot of the time normally are just people that just happen to be in his way. And that's what's scary. But in this one, they made him kind of go after people who were like set up to kind of be like, look at this bad person. Like, because then also like the doctor at the hospital that Allison works at gave the promotion that should have been hers to the girl, to the nurse that he was sleeping with, and then they end up getting killed. Like, so it just felt very like they were trying to make it make sense that he was killing these people, but also that never really made sense to Michael's character anyway.
Right.
So then why is he doing it? Like, is he a whole different thing? And also, we don't really need an explanation to why Michael is the way he is. I always thought he was scarier that there is no explanation, because that's the whole point. He's like the shape of a human. Like, he's not a human. There's no reason why he's like this. And then to shoehorn all of this into the last movie to try and do some sort of like
society.
Yeah, and maybe that's part of it. Maybe there was a lot of movies now, especially horror movies, have the elevated horror. There needs to be a reason. There needs to be all this like psychological motivation for all these things and all that. And maybe that influenced them to write their script the way they did, where there is supposed to be more of this maybe elevated horror but also, why would you need that in a slasher film? That's what we're here for. We're not here for that. And it just, with Corey's character adding that in there, it just didn't make sense to me to bring him in as a pseudo Michael to explain why he's like that.
Right. And like, especially too, the whole reason, like, not only does Allison immediately just fall in love with him, like upon first sight, but their relationship is basically, she says somebody is troubling her and he goes and kills them for her. And like in my Letterboxd review, I reviewed this movie as just saying the craziest Joker and Harley origin yet. Because like that's what it reminded me almost of, was like a bad Joker and Harley Quinn origin story where like he was just going crazier and crazier, but he was like, as long as I'm killing people for her, she'll love me. And I just don't understand why they made her have such bad relationships, or have one at all. Like,
She was just so infatuated with the guy, and there
Yeah.
was like no real reason for it. I could
Right.
not wrap my head around it.
and they even have the fight where he's like, you can't fix me, so just leave me alone. And then and then another note too. This movie takes place in modern day.
Yeah.
We live close enough to go around rural Midwest America to where I kind of get the vibe of what those towns and cities are like, but none of them have those packed 50s style diners
Yeah.
or band kids rolling around in their leather jackets bullying people. Like, the town felt so out of place for what the middle of Illinois is supposed to feel like. Like, Corey's parents are like from Jersey or something. Like, they just don't, they had the accent
Yeah.
still. It just seems so out of place. The town itself, I think they've just really failed to establish that you're in small Midwest Illinois. But like, all of his kills are like you said, though, that he had a connection to all of them. And the only connection Michael had before they even made him have the cult behind him was just Lori, because the reason he kept trying to get her in Halloween 2 is because she got away in Halloween 1, which is why it started directly after the first one's started. And like in the newer trilogy, like now he's going after her whole family because she was the one that got away. But like this one ignores the original Halloween 2 as well. This trilogy does, so they're not siblings either. That was, it's just literally, well, she's the one that got away, time to finish the job, and their family is also in the way. So it was weird to do those kind of motivations, but then at the end when he picks up Michael Myers' mask, because Michael's very weak in this movie as
Yeah, they
well.
nerfed
Like
him.
you can really, which is a very odd contrast to Halloween Kills, where he was just a superhero that whole movie, which is part of why I didn't like it. Like when he's doing superhero lunges at people and just brutally killing them, I was like, that's not this character. But so he's super weak and old in this, and then he goes back and beats him up and then takes the mask, and I was like, all right, I see where they're going with this story. He is going to take it over. I was right. And then he goes into the house where Lori is, and I was like, tricky marketing. The actual fight between Michael and Lori is Corey and Lori.
Right.
And then she just shoots him right away
Yeah.
and just takes care of
But
him.
he takes it.
Yeah.
Like that's what's crazy to me. Where it's like I don't feel like he earned the right to become the next Michael, but he still takes 2 shots to the chest, takes a crash over the railing, takes I think a stabbing, and then he only dies like another 5 minutes later.
Right.
It's ridiculous. to
Well,
me.
he's like getting the immortality. Like he even
Yeah.
kind of foreshadows that on the radio station when he jumps off the roof twice, and she's like, "Are you trying to kill yourself?" And he's like, "I have no place left in the mortal world," or something like that. Something that you would have gotten off an AFI record from the late
This movie's
2000s.
trying to be so edgy. I feel
Yeah.
like.
Yeah.
So many times I think like, oh, he's the mysterious, shady, like.
Maybe you felt the same. Have you ever seen The Lost Boys? Like the parts when they're riding the motorcycle around with like the
Yeah.
synth soundtrack felt so Lost Boysy, like
Yeah.
very weird 80s teen horror. And I was like, this stuff's so out of place, but it's like I was vibing with it because it's such a different choice and not what I expected. And then they just decide, nope, we're not doing any of that. And they just commit to the bit if you're going to commit to it, is at least how I felt on it. Do you have any opinions on Allison's story throughout this film?
Not. I mean, like, it doesn't really make sense with how Corey's character unfolds. I wish that, like, if they were gonna make it more of like a rebellious sort of reason why she's with him, they could have made it a little bit clearer. It's more of like, well, we just need to have a reason to follow this kid around, or they need to have a connection with this kid and Lori, and this is the only way they could make that connection.
Right.
It seemed, and it just seemed very like underwritten. Like they just kind of were like, okay, cool, and they're dating now, and it's
Yeah.
like, and it just
Oh, cool, they're dating, now they're in love. And
and it was very fast, yeah, and just like the whole, like, how it unfolds for his character doesn't make sense with how they unfold their relationship and everything. And I just, at that point, I think I checked out. Like, not in, not
Fair.
like, but it just, like, for me trying to make sense of the movie, I think I checked out. Like, I watched it, but I was trying to make it make sense while I was watching
Right.
it. And then at one point I was like, this just doesn't make sense anymore. Like, there was a part from the first two movies, they kept talking about the house, the Myers house, that room. Like, it's a big deal, that spot. Like,
Yeah.
5 different people stand in the same spot, and they make it such a big deal. They don't even talk about the Myers house in the third one. Like, not even
Well,
once.
they show that clip at the beginning from a newspaper that said they demolished it, and that's it.
But it's just like, then why do all the setup of the other two things
Right.
if that's not going to become any importance later? Like, I don't know if they just didn't know what they were going to write about for the third one, and they just, like, because they weren't able to string these together to make sense. Like, it seems like they were like, okay, this is cool for the first one. Okay, now we have to write a second one. Okay, now we have to write a third. And they just, like, didn't care to have a through line for any
Right.
of them. It just...
And like my first thought is maybe the bad reception of Halloween Kills kind of forced them to rewrite a lot of this movie but they filmed them sequentially. So there was no break. So this was how they had it written to begin with. And they just had no way of properly connecting it. But then also what confuses me too is when Laurie shoots Corey, she shoots the wall twice. And I don't know if she's doing that to make it look like he attacked her first, or maybe to show she was out of bullets, but then she wasn't. Because then 30 seconds later, there was 2 left in the chamber when she was sitting there in the hallway. And like, so Allison comes home, and because he was like, if no one can have her, or if I can't have her, no one can, and then kills himself.
Well, tried to.
Yeah, tried to. But like, he's getting that immortality thing, so like, he's still surviving. And then Michael ends up showing up, and then you're like, all right, finally, the true killer is gonna come back. And then I happened to look at my watch because I had an ESPN alert go off, and like, I saw what time it was, and I was like, oh, this has to be like almost over. And I was so like, Michael kills Corey himself.
Underwhelmingly.
Yeah, very underwhelmingly, because he just, I mean, it's gross from a horror standpoint, but he just breaks his neck, and you think that it would have been more of a standoff where, like, maybe they fought as,
Or at least a detailed, like, head smash.
yeah, kind of
Yeah.
like an Obi-Wan Anakin type deal, where it was like the master and the apprentice going at it for a
Yeah.
while, and then the master came on top. But so like, Michael takes care of him, and then he goes into the kitchen where Laurie was waiting for him, and their final confrontation was underwhelming because it's just 5 minutes of him throwing around a very obvious not Jamie Lee Curtis in that kitchen. Like, very clearly a stunt double with a wig on. And they just took turns throwing each other around the kitchen for 5
Pinning
minutes.
each other down to things.
Until she finally stabbed him with it and pins him down with knives and throws the fridge on him to keep him down.
That was a good idea, I felt like, though.
Yeah.
Fridge on top.
And then the end where they're all holding his body.
Right.
When
They did a
the
parade.
town
It's
where
like they
they're all
remembered. It's like they
carrying-
remembered how Halloween Kills went. They were like, "Oh yeah, everyone was supposed to
That
care
was
about
super
killing
cheesy
him."
though.
Yeah,
Like that ending of them all just like carrying the body and
right.
It was
the
cool
fact
to
that
see
she
him
like
get crushed.
it,
Yeah.
that was
That was
awesome.
pretty
It was cool, but it was like it would have been cooler if it was just Laurie.
Right.
Like I don't know, like the crowd coming together sort of thing was super
After they
cheesy.
vilified her the whole
yeah,
movie
the
again.
whole thing of the
and-
parade, and then also it was kind of like funny to see them like just tie his body to the hood of the car like he was
like
a
he's a
deer.
deer. Yeah. We just got back with our hunt. Well, because like it was like she cut his wrists, so he bled that way. She
Yeah.
cut his neck, and she took the mask off to look at him.
Right.
And she was just like, now you're not evil. You're just a man who's no longer going to be breathing. And that was a good line. That I thought that was a good
One of the
line.
few in
But
the movie.
yeah, one of the very few. But like when he does like eventually die on that table, whatever, they're just like the police come in and they're just like, he's not dead enough. And they're like,
Yeah.
this isn't how we do it. And the
It is
sheriff's like,
tonight.
it is tonight. So they put him on the car and the whole town follows to the dump, and then they go to the the chopper machine and they grind him in. And that was my thought too. Was I was like, you know, if you want to make sure he's like dead, you should
Yeah.
like dismember him at least.
Yeah,
But,
like that death wasn't what I had an issue with.
Yeah.
It was just like
The
everything
parade.
right before
They
it.
did a parade
yeah,
for the guy.
because I
Yeah.
thought they were just gonna have that happen and then like maybe bury him and then it'd be like, oh, so then they can bring him back now in the future because like we didn't see him be dead. He'll come out of that grave. But maybe it's just because I watched that Dahmer series too recently and just the dismembering is the way that I've been used to my horror movies killing things.
Well, I was saying decapitate him. While he was
Yeah.
on the table, I was
Right.
like, just cut his head off, do something.
Which
like,
is what
you
she
guys
did in
need to-
H2O.
Yeah.
Before they decide to make one more and make Resurrection, to where that sneaky Michael switched bodies with somebody, and
I gotta love
so like, it's just like they tried to take elements that kind of worked in the previous sequels that they retconned, and then bring them back into the new series, so that way there'd be like almost a whole flow similar to how we got it. But then they didn't do it well again. So they tried to do the same type of premise twice, and it failed twice. So, but it's inevitable Halloween's going to come back.
Oh, for
like,
sure.
like they might even announce a new trilogy within the next 2 years. And I don't know where they can take the franchise from here without maybe letting it sit for like a good decade and then just restart from the beginning and just recast Laurie and just start from Halloween over again and
They're
go
going
from there.
to make it again.
Yeah,
It's just a matter of time.
yeah, because it's not making as much money as the first two, but it did make money. Yeah, it did make enough because horror films are very profitable for what they are. So let's go into just like our final thoughts and our review score of Halloween Ends. Desiree, let's start with you.
Just overall thoughts. It was pretty disappointing from what they had set up from the first, like the 2018 version. It just kind of went downhill from there. I wish that they made some different choices. I think that there was a lot of potential with like the kills were really cool, like the ones that they had at least. But it definitely didn't feel like a Halloween movie, and it was kind of a letdown, a little bit. And do I do the
Yeah.
rating? Like 3 out of 5.
3 out of 5.
Maybe two and a
still.
half.
Okay.
Because it was visually still great. It
Yeah.
was still, and the acting was amazing. Like the guy that plays Corey is a good actor.
Yeah, he
it was
sells
just not,
crazy very well.
It was just not utilized
Yeah.
well in the movie for the script. But yeah, so like two and a half
Okay.
out of 5.
Said.
I do have to agree. The acting was quality, but the script that they were given, there's not much you can do with it. I would like to just backtrack for 1 second, just to give a tiny benefit of the doubt to that relationship between Allison and Corey. I do think they were heavily trying to allude to the fact it's like, oh, because Laurie and Allison are related and she lost her mom, she's ostracized by the community, he's ostracized by the community, that's why they come together.
Right.
It's just like, that's not strong enough
Yeah.
to bring you guys together. I just really wanted to touch on that because that's the only thing I can think of that maybe brings those two characters together. But pretty much like you said, it was just a disappointing entry. I think the most fun you can have with this movie, because you still can have fun with this movie, watch it with a group of friends, make fun of it, have a laugh, have a good time. I got to give it 2.5. 2.5 rails out of 5.
Okay. Yeah, my final thoughts are just like I liked where they were going with the Corey story and wish they would have just followed that through. And if they were going to try and repeat story plot points that we've seen before, they should have just stuck with it and went from there, and that would have made it make more sense when they make more instead of just rebooting it with Michael Myers again. But that's just because I wanted the franchise to live on healthily and not just from a pure reboot make us box office money sense. Because I even as bad as the old sequels are, I still like watching all of them. None of them will ever touch the original, but I do like watching all of them. And it's just a shame that I can't say that the full trilogy of these new films have made that rewatch
Worth it.
like rotation for me. I rewatched the 2018 one, but I will not see myself watching Kills or Ends. Maybe Ends, to be honest. That might grow more as like a cult favorite over time, but I don't see myself ever revisiting Halloween Kills. And it's just disappointing that they couldn't stick the landing with such an iconic franchise like this. But it is a tough task. I don't think I could do much better, to be honest. I don't know where I would go with it either, but I also gave it 2.5 out of 5. Because I didn't hate my time there, but I didn't like it. It's just weird. I think it's just because they were making such a weird choice with that one storyline. I was just all for that, and then they just decided to give up on it at the end. And then the final confrontation was just a letdown as well. So just a little disappointing. But Desiree, where can the good people find you at on the internet?
I am on Letterboxd, as I think it's Desi Love 127 on there.
Okay. And
You
Zed?
can check me out on Letterboxd right here, because I don't remember what my thing is.
You can find me on Letterboxd at WBeeman7, and you can, of course, find the show on Letterboxd at Real Good Movies. I'm glad I said it correctly, though, because on our special Hobnobbin episode, I called it Real Good Films. Yeah. I was just nervous, I guess. I don't know what the deal is with that. But also, you can find college TV in the basement of the Home Key Library at PFW, and if you want to support films in a way that matters, please visit and check out films at the local nonprofit theater Cinema Center in downtown Fort Wayne. Next month's episode will most likely be about Black Panther Wakanda Forever, so look forward to that. And then it'll also be about Thanksgiving time. So another holiday is shortly approaching, just as it is that time of year. But anyway, I'm your host, Will Beeman, and thank you very much for joining us. Roll credits.
Gosh, I love movies.